Okay, what is this? The Stockholm Syndrome? From a mind perspective. What I mean with that is, I don't know what people think we are. I don't know what you think you are. But if I look at the way they describe what the Stockholm Syndrome is supposed to be, then what you realize is that there is a complete lack of understanding of what humans actually are. Right? This is, I think I'm a body, or I think I know I'm a body, I'm just a body, just somebody, just anybody, I'm just a body. And then trying to explain from that perspective why, let's say, hostages feel sympathy for their captors. Right? And then trying to explain that as some kind of like a syndrome, as some kind of disease. And if you look at the word syndrome, then apparently sin, if you look at the etymology, sin, the S-Y-N, means something like with, and drome comes from also the dromedar. It's like a running camel that was bred for that. And one meaning of the word is course. So also the course you set for your life. So let's say, right, if you look at it and you realize we're all beings of mind, but what you can see is also maybe there are people who hate their lives, which are many. Many hate this way of living, many of us, which is why everyone is so angry, right? So let's just assume there's like a bank robbery and then people take hostages, and it's not just 5 seconds, let's say it's a bit longer. Well, you can also ask yourself, why does the beaten horse obey he who beat it, right? How can you break something into submission? Well, early schooling, there you go. Village life would be very different. In the sense of a village, let's see like in, Avatar, the series, where Katara grew up, right? There would be a village with so and so many people, and you'd work hard to figure out which child in a way also needs to learn. Some children are a bit stronger, of course, but everybody has to know their place. But there will always be the rogue. There's always this one kid that likes to do things differently, that likes to do things his or her way, that exists in all kinds of different communities, also wolves, birds, right? There's always someone that does it a bit different than the rest. Not necessarily because you have to, but because you simply like to express yourself that way, right? So, in a way, if I'm a content creator, then I'm also keeping everyone who follows me captive, right? You subscribe to my channel, you get content. In a way, you're a bit like a hostage. Only you do so to a certain degree willingly, but maybe I've made my content also a bit irresistible, right? Because there's a certain energy in this that you crave. And maybe you think I can give that to you, but I cannot. I can only show you this is how it feels like, and now you have to figure it out for yourself, which is what your goal in life should be. So let's say there's a Stockholm Syndrome explaining session. What? Let's say there's a Stockholm Syndrome explaining session? No. There's like the bank robbery, and now you've got the bank robber. And the bank robber is a very charismatic guy. I mean, he understood something, and he simply felt like doing a bank robbery for whatever reason. And then you got some people, and they've got a good team or whatever, and then they go and they, take over the bank, and now they keep hostages. And now there's gonna be people in there who will admire him. But in terms of this society bubble, which contains all kinds of things that people say you ought to believe, like you ought to believe that it's bad to rob a bank. Well, in a sense you can say, sure, it is. But in a sense you can say, why? I mean, as long as I don't hurt anyone, I mean, what's really so bad? Because it's our money. We took it. Or people gave it to us. So you cannot steal it. Well, what's stealing? I mean, how can you really steal something if nothing actually belongs to anyone? Right? I mean, why should it matter to you if somebody comes to a shop in which you work in and he steals something? You think you're some kind of hero? Because in what position does he find himself if he's stealing? Well, in a way, stealing is kind of dishonest. But at the same time, I mean, there's a lot of stuff, and you say this is your stuff, and you have to buy it from me, because you bought it first. Now you've got a bank, and there's lots of money, and now people come, and they actually have a lot of courage. I mean, sure, they've got weapons, which is a bit prone to violence, that kind of stuff, I agree, is... right, I mean, it's hard to agree with it, but you can still fall in love with probably the leader. Why? Because, I mean, maybe he's got a lot of spunk. Maybe he's got a lot of something. So, to explain, like the Stockholm Syndrome, means you have to actually look at a human as an emotional being. And if you realize there's somebody who's got something to give, I mean, there's also good bank robberies and bad bank robberies. And maybe you weren't a very good one. And now the police comes and they want to talk you into this guy is really bad. But he never treated you badly. I mean, you felt maybe very secure as a hostage. And he actually gave you stability for however long you were being kept a hostage. And the guy who does the bank robbery may not even know that. And now because you live in this kind of a system, and of course they try to break you into, right, only worshipping the system, and now somebody comes who's against the system, they try to get you to see him as bad. Because if everybody just starts doing what they want, well, then we're in open warfare inside the country. It's like a state of rebellion. So what I see is that they just give a name to something, that they want to act like, that's the perspective you ought to have. The bank robber is really bad and we're really good, and that's why the bank robber needs to be really bad, and that's why everyone who can fall in love with the bank robber must be sick and confused and weird. But how sick and confused and weird must you be to fall in love with a so-called country that makes its business by, exploiting people, exploiting the land, and simply demanding ownership over you as an individual? I mean, that's kind of crazy, isn't it? So the ultimate culprit who's bothered if people steal from him is the guy who steals from others himself. No, he wants to steal from you. You don't get to steal what I stole. I mean, that's basically what it is. But on the other hand is, well, what's your excuse? I mean, in a sense, it's not... Yeah, nobody's innocent. But the message is, you have been participating. And I don't care how bad school for you was, because school was bad for me as well. But I simply made the choice that, I want to live my life the way I would like to live my life. And my energy goes where I feel like it ought to go. Into the places where I can be creative. Right? And that also is a selfish choice because, right, social platforms and everything that's on the internet also wastes a lot of energy and takes material from nature to turn it into servers, which means that online streaming and all that kind of stuff is basically responsible for deforestation. So we need to save certain areas from that fate of deforestation. We need to say there have to be areas that are simply protected, and that shouldn't be just deserts because it's just too hostile to do something in there. No, that should be just forests. And then we simply have to learn to consume less, and to, instead of have 5 children because you get money for them, maybe you just have 2 or 1. I mean, 2 children should be enough, or maybe 1, right? Sometimes people just get really greedy. And I mean, in a certain way, of course, if the parents have no direction themselves, then they simply leave the early schooling to the country that they think they live in, because every country is just a concept. I mean, you can be in the country but not be in the country, if you know what I mean. I mean, I'm just anywhere. I'm just here. That's it. There's no specific country there for me. So I never give my children to this giant institution that lays waste to the land. I teach them myself. And they couldn't do anything about it, because I know better what I'm doing than they do. Right? I have learned more things than anyone who I see sitting around there acting like they're good at something. Well, whatever, Now I'm losing track, but it's of course just an emotional thing. You cannot explain love in that sense. I mean, you cannot reduce me to a body with, and then just say, yeah, because you fell in love with this guy, you must be crazy or sick. Like, what's your problem? I mean, maybe we're of the same mind, and that's why we like each other, right? Maybe we have a similar way of feeling or seeing, and that's why we like each other. You just have a problem because you cannot relate to me because of whatever, is different. Plus, you may just be afraid, right? Seeing me for who I am might actually scare you enough to say I don't like him, right? Just because you're afraid, or you know maybe I'm better than you. So, if somebody really loves someone and feels connected, which may be a better word, but let's say they're separated, like in that bank robbery, and then other people come and try to talk you into hating that guy or hating this person, you're just gonna make a stand for him. You're gonna say, but you don't really know him. I mean, he's had bad times too. And then everyone who comes to try to pick on this relationship that you have, maybe inside of yourself, very likely inside of yourself, you're going to say, you're going to know that everyone who tries to take this relationship apart that you find or hold very precious is basically not to be trusted, because they'd like to have you for themselves. Because every time you start talking about, this guy or that woman or whatever, they start hacking her to bits or him. And you say, what's your problem? I mean, have you no love for yourself that you have to destroy the love that I'm feeling? I mean, have you nothing that you hold precious? Why can't you just let me like this guy? Just because you think he's bad, because he's not you, right? Because you think, I ought to be your woman or something. Or I should, see myself with you, but I don't, because I already see myself with somebody else. I mean, what makes you so great? I mean, you came after him, and after him there's no one, if you get what I'm saying. This is then the ultimate partnership. I mean, this is also a very special moment then for people. I mean, you've been taken a hostage for the first time in your life. I mean, it's exciting. It's one of the memorable moments of your life. And now somebody comes and wants to ruin that for you? I mean, you actually liked being a hostage by that guy. And now they say, yeah, you've got Stockholm Syndrome, you're clearly sick. We have to treat you, right? And now they're trying to find a reason to get some money out of the situation, right? Now they're trying to talk you into that you're sick and you need therapy, so that they at least get something of that juice, love relationship. So you just have to say, yeah, I don't see so. I don't think so. I don't feel so. Because think so is bullshit. I don't feel so. I may express what I'm feeling through thoughts, and I may express what I'm feeling through words or certainly actions, but there is no, thoughts are simply a reflection of how you're feeling, and you can even whitewash your thoughts. But if you're true and honest, then you know exactly what's going on. And then you look at your thoughts and you realize, I've been born into a sick world, and now for the first time I felt alive. I felt the thrill, I felt the danger. Somebody came with a needle and burst my bubble. And now they want me to hate that guy? Now they want me to hate that woman? What's your problem? Right? I mean, he inspired me to look for something, to change my life. But what you also realize that if you go with guns somewhere, they're just gonna tear you apart. So the better way is to simply learn how to be relaxed in your own space and figure out what yoga means, do your breath work, and simply let the energy come to you. Law of attraction. Learn to channel it into something creative. Because what's a bank robber? Well, that guy had potential, but he wasn't willing to build it. So he simply wanted it right away, right? He just wanted the money. Well, then he's simply self-destructive, right? It's like the relationship that you wanted right away, but maybe that needed 5 years build-up, where you just live alongside each other, where you get to know each other inside your minds, living on the other side until you can finally see each other in person. And that's super weird, because I'm still trying to figure out if there is actually a difference between man and woman in terms of mind or emotional being. I'm still trying to figure out what I am as a human, as a soul, as some kind of spirit or being. Well, all I know is that I'm here and I learned to deal with myself. You know, I make dealings with myself. I say, and that makes no sense if you think about it, but it works for me. You know, I say I get to do certain things, but for that I have to do other certain things. I mean, this morning I woke up and my body is so hard and tough, strenuous, strong, you know, like a panther. I mean, it's incredible when I look at how much darkness I can channel. I mean, it's exhilarating even. And so, from all this animal movement, I mean, I'm such a beast. You know, I even astonish myself. And I'm often wondering if I should, at times, go back to the park. Just once in a while, like on certain occasions. Or if I can never do that again. Well, that's really hard to answer. That's really hard to say. You know, where you should go and if you could never go somewhere else. I think I just have to be stable before I were to come back. Right? I just have to be... I don't know, man. I'm a nomad, right? So I think I like to be in certain places at certain times. And I think I have said enough about the Stockholm Syndrome, that often these names for diseases actually have an emotional basis and they always act like it's psychological. But you cannot treat emotional beings like everything's just like psychological. No, you have to see the emotion, right? Plus you have to understand humans. You have to know, you know, you have to be able to feel how they felt. But you also have to see that we are beings of mind and that there is a certain word called mindfulness. Like my mind is full and yet empty, right? Most people's mind is just intermediate, you know, never really full and never really empty. So my mind is full of nice stuff, creative stuff, right? And it's huge. I've got a big mind because I've blown it so many times by making new experiences, you know? So, what else is there to say? You know, I am clearly the rogue, you know? I am clearly, I carry some kind of a rebellion in my heart. I simply learned to express it in a more peaceful way. But I'm still the rogue. I'm still the rogue, right? Somebody people would like to get rid of because as long as I exist, they know that they're not as good as they thought they were. And that's how far thoughts can bring you. It's just wishful thinking. And that's all. Very well.